So I know Head Start is a fellowship you started. I think this is really cool to me. I've been following it when I see the posts on LinkedIn and stuff like that. It's basically my understanding is that it's a fellowship created for college students that are trying to get into like major business industries, and you're responsible for connecting them with collegiate students who have gone or people who have gone through those industries who are usually younger. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the founding story of Head Start was me just trying to solve two problems I faced early on in my sort of college journey. I think one is like the really importance of mentorship, especially early on as a college student. So like for me, like I didn't really go to a high school where like a lot of kids went to college. So like I don't think anyone in my high school's ever went to LBW, like etc. So I didn't really just know. I didn't have like those natural mentors when I was on campus at UT. It was like, oh, this person was on the team with me, or their brother was on the team with me, their sister, their cousin, etc. So I was like, I was just having to figure it out. But I was lucky to attend like a similar camp to LBW, but at UT, which was called MFEA. My camp counselor and was an upperclassman, and like she ended up really being vital in like all of my achievements. And it's not even like I don't want to say it's like in the I don't want to say it's like indirectly, but it's like through her I found out I had to apply to clubs. I didn't even know you had to do that, and I'm sure you're aware, right? Like a lot of these schools, if you don't get in first semester, freshman, fall, you're never getting in again. And like a lot of those clubs can really, really be helpful. And like without her, I wouldn't even have known that, right? And if I didn't know that, I couldn't apply, right? So I applied to some clubs for some of these clubs. Like I learned a lot of finance stuff, a lot of technical concepts, met people, made friends, etc. And like through all of those things coming together, I'm able to get opportunities. I was more prepared for interviews. I knew people who had already done processes, so it was like pretty expeditious on my end. I just had to, reach out to people for help. But there's a lot of people who were like, "Hey, I want to do finance." They didn't even realize the finance club application closed the third week of school. Like now you're a little bit behind. You have to work a little bit harder, right? So that was like one sort of gap there. Then the second gap I think is along the lines of professional discovery within the business world. I think it's something that like we're all facing in some way, but I don't think like a lot of people like to talk about it. But like I think most people don't want to do banking and consulting. Well, actually, I think I like to say that very confidently. Like most people don't want to do that, but it's a matter of all my friends are doing that, and like I don't really know what I want to do, so like that's what I'm gonna do, right? So after just like taking some time to think and plot, like I didn't notice any other organization that like their goal is like professional discovery within the business world. And I think like the sort of addressable market there is huge, as well as the value proposition there, because like as an individual, one, like you're more likely to have a more fun, more interesting internship if you know what you're getting yourself into, as well as on the company end, you're more likely to have higher retention, right? Because I think that's a big sort of struggle that a lot of people face with like diverse candidates is like retaining them. So it's not about like just attracting them. Like I think that problem's been fixed decently, but now it's like retaining them. But oftentimes like they didn't know what they signed up for because they didn't come from these corporate backgrounds. Then they end up staying for like 1 year, and then it's like now your black people percentage that was like 6% is down to 4 again, right? So rather than just building a cycle where it's not really sustaining that diverse population by having people who've done that discovery process, they're more inclined to stay. As well as again on your end, right? Like if you've actually thought about what you want to do, you've explored the options, like you're more likely going to be fulfilled where you are because you know you've actually gone through that discovery process rather than like 3 weeks into the job, you're like, is this what I signed up for? Like, why is everyone doing this, right? Which I think a lot of people face in a lot of these popular industries. So I'll say those are sort of the two main goals we have. Then as far as like how we go about it, so like you touched on, it's kind of like a two-sided marketplace where we have our mentors who are mainly upperclassmen who've already gone through these recruiting processes, and our fellows who are mainly freshmen and sophomores who are still curious as far as what they want to do, as well as would like that help in the recruiting processes. So we do have like a mentor matchmaking process there, as well as we have sort of continuous programming that's along the lines of professional discovery and personal development. And then we also have vertical specific programming. So it's like what happens after I decide I want to do tech, right? You need to start getting on leak code. You need to start doing your PM mocks, etc. So just connecting you with the people that have already done that, showing you what they did, what was helpful, what was effective, what were their interviews like, what are the books they read, etc. We think is super helpful. It's like one, help you figure out what you want to do, and then two, serve as a launch pad to get you there. Because like it will be doing a pretty big disservice if we're like, okay, cool, now you know you want to do tech, now go figure it out, right? Like we trying to sort of own that process 0 to 1. So at a high level, I would definitely say that's what Head Start looks like as far as structure and as far as mission.
Man, that's really cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that with me and the audience. Um, I really like that second point you mentioned about giving people the opportunity to explore professionally, because it's kind of hard, because essentially, assuming you don't get your internship after your freshman year, right? You essentially only have your summer after your sophomore year and the summer after your junior year to decide what you want to go into. Because I feel like in order to make an informed decision, you have to really be immersed in that industry, and you only get two shots, not even three. So I really appreciate how you guys are actively trying to get people get people who have gone through the process to expose, wet behind the ears freshmen to like the nuances of the industry and like the kind of stuff they're getting into. That's a really nice thing.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
one thing interesting too is just like the question of like what matters to people. So like a lot of people, they don't really think about that and making a professional decision, but that's actually oftentimes like more important than like what you actually want to do. So like let's say what matters to you is spending time with family, building a family, etc. Like, do you want to be an investment banker, right? So like these are things that like I've had to go through with some of our fellows and conversations I've had to have, where like they came in like, yeah, I'm really interested in finance. I think I want to do banking. And then I'm just like, okay, like what matters to you? Like, what do you think you want to really be doing like 5 years from now, as far as personally? Like, yeah, I really want to spend time with family, have a family. I'm like, yeah, you don't really see that a lot in that industry, right? Because in that industry, you're working very long hours, 80, 90 hours on bad weeks, etc. But it's like you hear that, but it's like you don't actually do the math on that. It's like, oh, if I'm working 80 hours a week, oh, even if I had a kid, like I don't think I'd be able to get them to school or put them to sleep because I'd be in the office at both of those times. So really just like putting these things in ways that are very digestible rather than just hearing the headlines, I think is a unique value proposition.